Member of Hamas's political bureau, Dr. Basem Naim, thank you for joining us on Al Jazeera. The Qatari Prime Minister talked about the ceasefire deal that has been signed as being based on the framework that was discussed in December 2023. And even President Biden himself talked about the deal that he says it was based on a proposal he made in May 2024. What changed now?
I think we can talk about multifactorial changes. First of all, he failed to achieve any of his goals except destruction and killing of thousands of people and denying Gazans their basic needs of food and medicine and so on. I mean, the starvation and famine. Internally, the pressure on him is increasing day after day. We have seen in the last polls that more than 80% of Israelis are for a deal, including a huge part of the right-wing population. And I think also the change in the American administration was one of these factors which has led to this moment. I believe that there is a different approach between the two administrations, and what we heard yesterday from President Biden, that he was aware about all these intentions from Netanyahu, including the genocide, including the displacement, forceful displacement of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip towards Egypt and so on and so on. He was aware of this, and he said that Netanyahu told him that he is planning for all these goals. Netanyahu failed, and unfortunately Biden, he didn't use any serious pressure on him to go for a deal. Therefore, we have said it many times, we consider the administration, Biden and his administration, are complicit in this genocide.
Negotiations for phase 2 of the ceasefire deal will come under a Trump administration. And we've heard the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu talking to the families of captives, saying that he expects the situation to be easier under a Trump presidency. What's your reaction?
Look, I cannot answer this question on behalf of the Israelis. I don't know how Trump will behave when it comes to the Israelis, but we have also our concerns that, okay, yes, President Trump have exercised pressure to go for a deal, and he said it clearly that I need a deal before the inauguration day on January 20, but at the same time we hear a lot of very serious, dangerous plans when it comes to the West Bank, the annexation of our Palestinian land, the announcement of sovereignty, of Israeli sovereignty over the Palestinian territories, opening the borders or opening the doors for the normalization between Israel and different Arabic countries. We hope that that Netanyahu didn't get a reward for stopping this war in Gaza to annex more land in the West Bank, or to get or to be rewarded by a liberation with different Arabic countries.
You've always insisted on ending the war being part of any ceasefire deal, but Israel says that Hamas has withdrawn or changed some of its demands, allowing the deal to happen. What's your response to that?
Look, first, from May last year, we have said that we accept the proposal of May 27th. We are ready to sit for negotiating the implementation of this deal. And we have 5 conditions to accept any deal. First of all, a permanent ceasefire, the total withdrawal of the Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip, the return of all displaced people to their houses freely, without any obstacles or hindrance, opening the borders for aid to get into Gaza, and lastly, a serious prisoner exchange. I believe, or we believe, that all these 5 conditions has been fulfilled.
Do you have any assurances that Israel will go beyond phase 1 and continue negotiations to end the war?
This was our demand from day one, that we can go for a deal. Okay, it is composed of 3 phases, phase 1, 2, 3. Each phase is 42 days. But we have always asked for guarantees that this deal is one package, and at the end of the deal, we are heading toward a permanent ceasefire and a total withdrawal of the Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip, plus a serious prisoner exchange, opening the borders for aid to get into Gaza, and finally the return of all displaced people to their houses. To talk about guarantees, first of all, the mediators have said it clearly, and it is reflected in the words of the deal, that this deal, the negotiations between the two parties has to continue under the condition of the first phase, which means ceasefire, until we reach a final deal with a permanent ceasefire and total withdrawal. Second, we hope that this deal will be adopted by the international community, by the UN Security Council, to give it more strength to be supported by the whole international community. And lastly, I think maybe the failure of Netanyahu to achieve any of his goals inside Gaza, except killing the people and destroying the city, and the pressure inside Israel that could prevent him from returning back to war again.
Dr. Basem, we hear many voices in the besieged Gaza Strip talking with anger about the losses they've suffered during this war. Some even saying that the attack on October the 7th was a miscalculation. As a member of Hamas's political bureau, what do you respond to that?
I'm sure Hamas, and not only Hamas, all Palestinian factions will sit down around the table with a very cool mind to discuss all the positive and negative repercussions of the operation of October 7th and what came after that of the Israeli aggression. But here I have to be honest with you. First of all, we are people under occupation, and we were in Gaza Strip besieged for more than 17 years, tightly besieged. And we have tried by all means to get rid of this siege. And we have always observed and watched what's happening in the West Bank, what's happening in Jerusalem, Judaization, the attacks against Al-Aqsa Mosque. And therefore, you cannot compare between peace and war. Palestinians were given one of two choices: either to die in pieces and silently to be a good victim, or to die fighting, resisting by an Israeli or an Israeli-American bomb. I mean, the Palestinians were not giving a serious choice to have a peaceful, prosperous life. And look, in the West Bank, for example, there is no October 7th, there is no Hamas, but thousands of Palestinians along the last few years have been killed on checkpoints. All the cities, all the villages are tightly besieged, and the people cannot move. The Judaization of Jerusalem and the forceful displacement and expelling of Palestinians from Al-Quds, from Jerusalem, the attacks, the daily attacks on Al-Aqsa Mosque, the serious and very dangerous attempts by the Israelis, especially these right-wing extremists, to change the status quo in Al-Aqsa Mosque. For the first time in the last 2-3 years, thousands of Israeli settlers stormed the mosque, performed all their prayers, raised the Israeli flags, and publicly talking about not only changing the status quo, but destroying the mosque and building the temple. Therefore, again, what we have done on October 7th is an act of defense. This round is between Hamas and Israel. But when we talk about Palestinian resistance for 75 years, or we may talk about 100 years of resistance, at some times it was with Hamas, for 20-30 years it was with Fatah, before that it was with PFLP and so on. Therefore, it is about Palestinians who are resisting the occupation and rejecting to be good victims or to yield the Israeli pressure and to be good slaves.
Do you fear for the popularity of the movement, specifically inside the besieged Gaza Strip itself?
When we as a resistance movement fighting the occupation or resisting the occupation, it is not only about popularity. We are not seeking for likes and subscription. It is a national vision towards freedom and dignity and self-sovereignty and independence. But based on the election happened in 2006, 5-6, based on a lot of polls, it has shown clearly that Hamas is representing a vast majority of Palestinian people on the ground. Okay, we are not representing all Palestinians, but we are representing a good majority. But despite of this, we have said it many times, we are calling for election as soon as possible, free, transparent election, and we are ready to facilitate, we are ready to respect, and we are ready to accept the results of an election.
Doctor, can you give us an idea about the losses that Hamas incurred after 15 months of this Israeli war? We're specifically here talking about its military capabilities. How much have you lost?
We cannot deny that Hamas got a very deep and hard strike. And we have lost some of our leaders, a lot of our fighters, a lot of our capabilities. But again, it is not about Hamas. It is about the Palestinian people and the resistance movements as a whole. Second, Hamas is not only Hamas in Gaza Strip. Hamas is present in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, in the diaspora. Hamas is a big institutionalized movement. Therefore, I'm sure we can sit together and find out how can we rebuild our movement in different areas, but particularly here in this case, in the Gaza Strip.
The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has been saying that Hamas was able to recruit many people inside the besieged Gaza Strip during the war that would compensate for the war's losses. What do you say to that? Is that true?
Yes, Hamas will continue to fight as long as we have the occupation. Unless we get rid of the occupation, Hamas is committed to continue fighting for an independent, self-sovereign state, for the dignity and freedom of all Palestinian people. Therefore, yes, there were a lot of efforts how to recruit new people, but again, these people who join Hamas at this very difficult, serious moment, it is reflecting the will of the people on the ground.
Well, speaking of the region, we know that there has been a lot of changes. The map really of the Middle East has changed drastically since the war started. How do you see Hamas now in light of these changes, in light of the new map, let's say, that is unfolding in the Middle East?
Hamas is a national Palestinian liberation movement, and therefore Hamas is adopting a Palestinian goal, which is the liberation of Palestine, Palestinian territories, the foundation of an independent Palestinian state, to get rid of the occupation. Therefore, regardless of all what's happening around us, okay, it will be reflected on our cause, but at the end of the day, we are committed only to our cause. We are not part of any axis here or there.
Oh, speaking of national unity and the Palestinian division, where do you see that going?
As we have said it many times, we believe that Palestinian unity is not a choice, is an obligation. But to reach unity, to end the division and to go for a reconciliation, we met many times in Moscow and Beijing, once and twice, and we have agreed upon the so-called unity document or the document of Beijing, And I think this is a good basis to start with, to build on this, to go for a unity. And this document, one of the proposals in this document was as a starting step to build a unity, a technocratic unity government taking over in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, have three goals: to unite the institutions, the ministries and the authorities, to prepare for elections, and to rebuild the Gaza Strip for a limited time, 1 year, 2 years. After that, we have to sit together, all the factions around the table, to discuss how to go for the other steps, how to reform the PLO so that the PLO can be representative of all Palestinians. PLO today is the legitimate representative of Palestinians in general, but on the ground it is representing only part of the Palestinians. How to rebuild the PLO, to reform the PLO, how to have, for example, a temporary Palestinian National Council to prepare for the next step. Unfortunately, until now, we have received negative responses from the other side in Ramallah. It was refused to go for a unity government, and even it was refused to accept the so-called independent committee to run the Gaza Strip after the war. We are waiting.
The Israeli government has long said that it will not allow Hamas to rule Gaza after the war. And we know that the discussions to form a committee headed by the Palestinian Authority to rule Gaza haven't developed yet. Where do you see your role in Gaza after the war?
When it comes to Hamas as an organization, Hamas is an inherent part of the social fabric of the Palestinians. Hamas is representing a vast majority of Palestinians, and we have a lot of other activities, not only the resistance, we have social activities, educational activities, religious activities, and so on. Therefore, Hamas was there and is there and will continue to be there. When it comes to governance, to rule Gaza, it is not only after October 7th or after this confrontation. We have said it years ago that we are ready to give up the government, to hand it over to a unity government. We have done it in 2014, we have done it in 2017, but unfortunately all the time we have received negative responses or negative steps from the other side.
So what are the alternatives if the two parties, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas and the international community, agree on a formula to rule Gaza after the war? Where do you see Gaza heading? How do you see the rule in Gaza?
We have today a wide factional meeting. It was attended by different Palestinian factions here. And we have started to discuss this idea: what can we do if the Palestinian unity government is rejected, if this committee, which was proposed by the Egyptians, also it is rejected? How can we have a temporary form of representing all Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to run the Gaza Strip until we reach unity? But at the same time, I have to say we have also to carry the responsibility, or to be committed to our obligations towards our people in the first day after ceasefire. We cannot leave Gaza for chaos. We cannot leave Gaza without any ruling bodies. We have the Minister of Health, Minister of Education, municipalities, and so on and so on. We will continue doing our job. We will continue doing our duties and obligations until we reach a proposal accepted from all the Palestinians, representing all the Palestinians.
Member of Hamas's political bureau, Dr. Basem Naim, thank you for talking to us on Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.